Now it's nice that we have a little gap in the weather here to do some painting. I'm going to try to get a nice early start today. We got a lot of stuff to paint. Now the biggest one is going to be, I want to get the green on the fairing sides. We got those all prepped up the other day when it was raining. And this is what's nice about doing this on a rainy day. We have those parts ready. So the first thing I need to do is get out there's two colors to this. Now in my stockpile I have pretty much the leftover paint from most of the bikes that I've painted. And the reason is because at times like this we want to match up what we did a couple of years ago when we did the original BIMOTA and the original Benelli. Now by having this matching paint, one of the things that's really nice, and just an example, we have the recent one we just did for Vlad is BIMOTA seat, the Benelli, but we're going to be painting it from the same can. And even the paint I have that's pre-thinned, I have it, excuse me, I have that all taped together. Another thing we're going to need in the next couple of days, Vlad Suzuki, so the other BIMOTA. Well, it's always good to save the paint in the case in the future you need. In this case, we want to do some more body work. And it should be an exact match. Now this Benelli paint is really some beautiful paint, and I know Vlad paid a lot of money for this paint, so we're hoping we're going to have, I'm pretty sure we'll have enough to do the 4 fairings, but you never know. But the first thing, because it's got a lot of pearl in it and a lot of metallic, the base coat on this paint is green. Normally a base coat would be silver. Base coat on this paint is green, and when we've done the fairing in the past, it's just been absolutely beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So what I want to do here, and I want to do this, I always have to do a little test with this type of paint because I want to see how much thinner we're going to have to add to it. Normally you just go and add 50-50 thinner. Well, you know, the problem is sometimes, well, I hate to say this, but sometimes it isn't exactly 50-50. And I want to look around. Where's my modern? The Midtown, okay. And it's always a good idea to start at 50-50. So I'll make my first mix up, and I just eyeball it. It's not like an ounce either way would make a big giant difference, but what I always want to be able to do with these fancy paints is just adjust it right at the last minute. This is a good place to start. It's right about 50-50. But again, this could change based on once we do a little test. And it's always, I always have a spray can. You notice every spray can here has some paint. Do a little test, see what it looks like. Now this paint always 3 coats about 20 minutes apart to build the base coat up. And I can see already we have a problem with these parts, again because they've had paint remover on them and various ways of stripping them. This paint is not compatible with what's underneath it, and so I'm real unhappy to say, looking at this right now, this paint has to all get stripped back off. There, it's all coming up. There's a compatibility issue, so what we tried by stripping these parts, whatever well, I don't know what Vlad used to strip them, really totally never came off because something inside, something in there is not happy. So now the only choice I have is to go get acetone right now and wipe this part perfectly clean. This adds a tremendous amount of work to the job, by the way. We basically have to go hit the reset button. So when you have this kind of an issue, let me show it up because this is the good information you're going to run into. Now, something in here, obviously, see, nothing wants to stick to that plastic. See how nothing is sticking to the plastic? Now, the only way to get around this, the only way that I even know, and it may be a better way to do this, you can take the paint off with your bare hand. When you have a compatibility issue with plastic, whether it's a Ducati mirror or what, watch what I'm doing. Get yourself a couple of rolls of paper towels. And if you're doing it, you obviously can't do this indoors. And you just, this is really the only choice you have at this point in time. Now, whatever the compatibility issue is, you never know, because we don't know what was on these parts to begin with. We don't know when they were molded. There's a mold release still on there. Is it a question of the paint? We've painted with this paint before and not had a problem. So here's basically, if you will, no sense letting the camera run because this is going to take about an hour to do one panel. But this is why I always do a little test with the paint, because I'd hate to paint this. And this is, we're going to go through a couple of gallons of acetone here by the time we're done. There's just no nice, clean, easy way to do this. And then I'll have to contact Vlad and see what he has in mind for these parts, if he's got some idea that I don't know, because it's pretty obvious the paint that we have in stock now is not happy on these parts at all. And maybe what we have to do, I have a feeling, see, my gut feeling is this is a problem with the Bulldog. The Bulldog is causing this problem, but I don't know that for a fact. And the only way I would know how to do that is to get all the paint off of this and then do it without the Bulldog. I guess we're going to see. We're going to see. I don't know. But you can see how I'm doing this, and if nobody shows you how to do this and you get to this point, you're sanding, it'll take 100 times longer. This is going to take at least an hour to clean this part. But at least you can see how I'm doing it, and you just keep scrubbing away at the paint. And keep throwing the paper towels away, and at some point in time, and it's really not fun. And that whole part has to be done. So here's the bottom line, is this thing has not worked out the way we planned. I've basically got all the Bulldog off. I used 1.5 gallons of acetone here. And acetone is, we've added almost 40 bucks to the price of the job, just an acetone. And at the very end, I'm not sure we made any progress here. But we did get all the old paint off. But the trick is, if you see, here's the tip that'll save you. If you see paint is not compatible, which is what we just saw, get it off right away. Don't wait. It's not going to go away. It's not going to all of a sudden tomorrow morning turn into good paint. And you got to bite the bullet with the acetone to get it off. In fact, you can see it's taking all the paint off the table, the residue paint that comes off. But this is a tip, and this is why we do YouTube videos. Just like this is a problem if you're painting plastic with. You don't know what's on before. You don't know what's in the paint remover. You don't know this is not a brand new factory part, and there's something in there in that combination of plastic and Bulldog and self-etching primer and whatever. There's some combination of things that don't like each other. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to let this part sit, resand it, and I guess the only thing I can do, I can go and get well, I really can't do it. I can go down to the body shop here and get his opinion, and I'll have to take a ride down there today and see what, maybe I'll call him up on the phone. This guy Mark at the body shop is pretty knowledgeable about this stuff. And we'll see what he says. Now what we really would like to do, now the paint is off, but the surface is rough. We'd like to make a barrier coat, somehow make a barrier coat on this. And I don't know what they're going to suggest. Now, as terrible as a meltdown like this is in terms of you waste your time, you waste all your acetone, whatever. This is, at least we've been able to get back, I call it the reset button, save the part, the basic part. But all this has to be sanded now. There's a roughness to it, so now there's another hour to this job. Just goes, and it just snowballs when you have problems like this. Now this is just some ordinary 400 wet and dry paper. All I want to do is get the rest of this residual off of here that I can. So basically I'm starting this whole project right back at square one. And sometimes there's just combinations of old paint, new paint, and I don't know what really was on these fairings. These are a strange kind of plastic, but I know this, the factory paint wasn't sticking. So this may be an issue they've already had, the Benelli they've already had with this. But what I'm going to for sure do is I have to solve this problem before I can move on to anything else. There's no point in, well, I don't know. I'm going to call up Mark over at Gavin as soon as this is done. See what he suggests. See if there's any trick I haven't figured out with this kind of plastic. Maybe he'll want me to bring this over there. And then of course I have to call Vlad and give him the bad news. It's not good news when the paint is not compatible. So Mark suggested we try coating the part, the raw part, with the sealer. And we have 2 cans of this. I'm not sure this is going to be the answer, but I'm willing to try anything right now. And when I put the first coat on, it looks like it's drying okay, but this, you don't never know. The problem is when you go to put the green on, it's not going to want to really sit the way it should. Well, but we're going to find out. Maybe we'll learn something from this experience if we learn it. What we learned is always have a good stock of paper towels and a couple extra gallons of acetone around. But here's what it looks like when you literally wipe the finish off a part. Literally. And all it does, it just killed the better part of this painting day that I could have gotten an awful lot done with these parts. Now this will be an interesting experiment too. I'm going to do the other part exactly the same as this. Try to use this sealer, it's duplicolor sealer, but you know what the problem is with all this? Every time, anybody that's ever done real body work will tell you, anytime you mix one paint with another one, with custom green, custom this, custom that, and then we don't know what was underneath this. Because when they do these parts, the plastic sometimes is contaminated. They use regrind, the little sprues that come out of the mold, they put it back in the machine. So sometimes there's the agent that they use for releasing is back in the sprues, is back in the molding machine. You never know, but that's why it's good to have. If this works, of course, we'll be looking good. But I'm going to just let this sit. In fact, maybe I'll let this sit all day, just to make sure it's totally dry before I put any paint on it and do a test. But from each job, I try to learn something, and thanks to YouTube, I try to share it. But here's a couple of things that I've learned already. Always have a couple of gallons of acetone around as like a lifeboat. So if you're in the middle of painting something and it isn't working out, dunk it with acetone, get out that roll of paper towels, 2 rolls, and just get it right off. Now one of the things, of course, that's interesting, it didn't melt on a table. The table is fine. Table is plastic. Different plastic, of course. Same primer, same everything. And table is fine. Part melted like a candle. I call it melting. There's really crazing is the right word. But anyway, I think we're basically going to get the other part done, get these 2 guys drying, and maybe get the clear on that seat, because we really don't want to waste this day. It's supposed to rain the rest of the week. Okay, as the day has gone by, these parts are sitting right waiting for a test, but I think to be perfectly fair, I think I'm going to let this primer dry overnight just in case. I really don't want to risk that these parts are going to have a meltdown again. Well, not that it's going to be a cure, but the cure here is, and maybe we should have done this, is I should have taken the inside where you won't see it, do a little paint work and see if the paint was more compatible. But this really, and it's not only this one, the Benelli parts themselves have really been a unique problem that we've not run into in other parts. But we're really hoping we can solve it. And this sealer may be the answer, but we won't know the answer until tomorrow or the next day when we get to paint this. And what we'll do is give that 3 coats, 20 minutes apart is usually good in this temperature. And tomorrow we'll let it dry overnight. Tomorrow pull the masking off, see if it's hard enough to buff, and buff it out. Now I thought this would be an experiment more than anything else, is just to see as I put a little, I made another batch of paint with a little bit less thinner. And I want to see how this, I'm not sure this is going to work, but we're certainly going to give it a try. I was going to let this dry overnight, but I just said, you know, we may as well, it's supposed to rain tomorrow. We may as well see if we're going to have to strip these back down to bare plastic one way or the other. And you don't really know until you let this sit for some amount of time anyway. No, I don't see any melting now, but I don't know if that sealer is the reason or if we just got rid of all of the stuff that was underneath it. Who knows? And there's still now always a chance that the next coat will have an issue. So anyway, we're going to let this dry, and we're going to put on the top coat and then let it dry overnight. I don't want to put the clear on too, because boy, if I ever have to wipe it off, then I'm dead. But best thing is just hope the birds don't poop on it. I wanted it out in the sun so it would dry, and now the top coat for this color is really a nice color. Okay, this is the top coat, and this is what has the little pearlescence in it. It really starts to pop once you put this on. I remember from doing the original, the track day, the bodywork, how nice this paint was color-wise. And we'll need usually 2 or 3 coats. When I get the second coat, I'll try to go in a different pattern, the third one in a different pattern. But you really need 3 coats. And at the third coat, that color is really going to pop. Now, unfortunately, it's not a sunny day that you can really see all the little pearl flakes in this. This is really some nice paint. I really like this paint. When it behaves. Anyway, it probably would be totally in our best interest. Now this has 3 coats of the top coat on it. Before I put any clear on it, I'd like to let it sit a couple days, and I just think this is going to be, well, hopefully we've recovered from what could have been a real tragedy, and we only lost 1 day in doing it. So I just wanted to pass this information on. The bottom line is, if you never want to have any of these compatibility issues that we've run into a couple times lately, what you do is you start with the primer that one company recommends and use their system of paint, clear, thinner, everything. It doesn't totally eliminate it. It minimizes the chance that you'll have a problem. Now, we don't have the luxury of doing that because most of the people that I work for supply their own paint, especially Vlad with these custom paints. And so we try to do these mix and match things that every once in a while they bite you in the ass. This is a day we got bit in the ass. But I think we've recovered pretty well. And it's that information of how to recover from these things that makes YouTube videos worth watching. And so as this day ends, that's really going to be nice. I think that's going to be just about as good as it gets. A day or two from now, we'll run a buffing wheel on that. Vlad will be able to pick it up. And our parts that are sitting out in the driveway, sitting out there like lizards in the sun. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. And if you run into these kind of problems, remember, everybody that paints long enough runs into them. And thanks for watching.